The sweet potato casserole sat untouched between us, its marshmallow top going cold. I watched my daughter Maya's fingers curl around her napkin, knuckles white against the fabric. She was 13 at that terrible age where every word landed like a stone, where she was just beginning to understand the hierarchies adults pretended didn't exist. We'd arrived at my parents' house 3 hours earlier, Maya carrying the green bean casserole she'd insisted on making herself. She'd watched YouTube tutorials, measured everything twice, worried that it wouldn't be good enough for Jennifer's standards. I'd assured her it would be perfect. I'd been wrong to focus on the casserole. My sister Jennifer had been talking for 20 minutes straight about her son's acceptance to a prestigious prep school. Briarwood Academy, she kept calling it as if the name itself conferred status. The application fee alone cost more than Maya's entire school wardrobe. The yearly tuition was more than I made in 6 months. Of course, we're investing in his future, Jennifer said, refilling her wine glass for the 3rd time. Not all children have the capacity for excellence. Some kids are just meant for minimum wage jobs. The table went quiet. My mother's fork paused halfway to her mouth. My father shifted in his chair, and I could feel his warning glance even without looking up. Maya's eyes fixed on her plate. She'd been working weekends at the local library, shelving books for $8 an hour. She loved that job. Loved the smell of old pages and the quiet dignity of organizing knowledge. Last week she'd come home beaming because the head librarian had praised her indexing system. She'd reorganized the entire young adult section by both genre and theme, creating cross-references that made it easier for kids to find books they'd actually want to read. Mrs. Patterson had called it innovative. Maya had called me at work just to tell me about it, her voice breathless with pride. I'd stuck that memory in my pocket for hard days. For moments like this when I needed to remember what mattered. Jennifer, my mother started, her voice carefully neutral. But Jennifer wasn't finished. She leaned back in her chair, gesturing with her wine glass in a way that suggested she'd had too much and cared too little. I'm just being realistic. Look at the statistics. Kids who don't get into the right schools, who don't have the right opportunities, they end up serving fries or stocking shelves. It's not cruel, it's just facts. My brother-in-law Derek nodded along, cutting his turkey with deliberate precision. He'd made his money in real estate during the boom and never let anyone forget it. Their house had 7 bedrooms for 3 people. Some families prioritize education, Jennifer continued, swirling her wine. Others prioritize, well, other things. Comfort. Easy choices. Not pushing their children toward excellence. The implication hung in the air like smoke. My mother's hand tightened around her fork. My father's jaw clenched in that way that meant he was choosing silence over conflict, the way he always did. I set down my fork. The sound it made against the china was sharper than I intended. The whole table felt it, that small metallic clink that meant something was about to break. Like living off alimony? I asked. The words came out quiet, almost conversational. But they landed like a slap. Jennifer's face went rigid. Derek's knife stopped mid-cut. My mother closed her eyes briefly, the way she did when she knew something irreversible had just happened. Excuse me. Jennifer's voice climbed an octave. Well, you're talking about who deserves what kind of work, I said, keeping my tone light and reasonable. I'm just wondering about your qualifications for judging, given that you haven't actually worked in 7 years. Not since you married Derek and decided that being a stay-at-home mother to 1 child required a full-time housekeeper and a nanny. The words came out calmer than I felt. I'd practiced this conversation in my head 100 times, usually at 3 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come and old resentments surfaced like bodies in a lake. I raise a child, she snapped. So do I. While working 50 hours a week. My father cleared his throat. Not here. Not today. I looked at him then, really looked at him. At the same man who'd told me to be quiet when Jennifer criticized my divorce. To keep peace when she made comments about Maya's thrift store clothes. To smile and nod when she explained why her son deserved his grandmother's antique desk instead of my daughter. Actually, Dad, here is perfect. Jennifer stood up so fast her chair scraped backward. How dare you? Derek works extremely hard to provide for us. And I work extremely hard to provide for Maya and myself, I said. But somehow when you live off your husband's money, it's being provided for. When I work for my own money, my daughter is destined for minimum wage. That's not what I said, Jennifer protested, but her face had gone blotchy. You said some kids only deserve minimum wage jobs. Maya works minimum wage. You were looking right at her when you said it. Maya hadn't moved, but I could see the tension in her shoulders beginning to ease slightly. She needed to hear this. Needed to know that someone would stand up when it mattered. My mother set down her napkin with careful precision. Perhaps we should all take a moment. No, I said. I've taken enough moments. I've bitten my tongue through 3 years of comments about Maya's clothes, her school, our apartment. I've smiled through the implications that my divorce made me a failure. I've watched my daughter shrink herself smaller and smaller at these dinners because she's learned that her existence is somehow less valuable than her cousin's. You're being dramatic, Jennifer said, but she couldn't quite meet my eyes. Am I? Last Christmas, you told her that state universities were for people who couldn't get in anywhere better. She cried for 2 hours that night because she'd been excited about the state school's marine biology program. They have one of the best in the country, but that didn't matter to you. What mattered was the prestige, the name recognition, the ability to drop it at dinner parties. I could see Maya's posture changing, straightening. She was listening to every word, filing it away. I never, Jennifer started. You did. I have the date in my journal because I had to spend that evening convincing my daughter that her dreams weren't worthless. Derek finally spoke up. Jennifer's just trying to be realistic about the world. It's competitive out there. Being realistic doesn't require being cruel, I said. And it's interesting that the people most insistent on being realistic are usually the ones who've never had to live in the real world they're describing. You've never had to decide between paying for heat or groceries. Never had to explain to your kid why she can't go on the school trip everyone else is going on. Never had to stretch a can of soup into 2 meals. My voice was still steady, still calm, but I could feel the tremor underneath. Years of swallowed words trying to surface all at once. What's that supposed to mean? Derek's face was reddening now. It means you inherited your first 3 properties from your father. It means Jennifer's never had to choose between fixing the car and buying groceries. It means your son's opportunities come from wealth, not some inherent superiority. His test prep tutors cost more per hour than Maya makes in a day. His college consultant charges what I pay in rent. His opportunities are bought and paid for, and there's nothing wrong with that, but don't dress it up as merit. Derek's face had gone from red to purple. You're just jealous. Maybe, I admitted. Maybe I am jealous that my daughter has to work twice as hard for half the recognition. But that doesn't make what I'm saying untrue. You leveraged what you had. There's a difference. And that's fine, truly it is. Use your advantages. But don't pretend it's the same as starting from nothing. Don't pretend your son's success exists in a vacuum, disconnected from the money that built the foundation he's standing on. My father stood up. That's enough. Both of you. It's not enough, Dad. It's never been enough. Because every time I've stopped, every time I've kept quiet for the sake of family peace, Maya has learned that she should accept being treated as less than. I turned to my sister. You want to talk about what kids deserve? Maya volunteers at the animal shelter every Sunday. She tutors younger kids in math for free. She saved half her library earnings to buy Christmas presents for the family. What exactly has she done to deserve your contempt? Jennifer's mouth opened and closed. I never meant. You did mean it. You mean it every time you talk about those people who work service jobs. Every time you wrinkle your nose at chain restaurants. Every time you make it clear that you think manual labor is beneath you. I don't think I'm better than. Your whole life is built on thinking you're better than, I interrupted. Your house, your car, your son's school. You've constructed an entire identity around being superior to people who have less money. And maybe that would be just sad if you kept it to yourself. But you don't. You spread it around like poison. My mother was crying quietly now. My father looked older than he had an hour ago. Maya finally spoke, her voice small but steady. I like my job. Everyone turned to look at her. I like shelving books, she continued, sitting up straighter. I like helping people find what they need. Mrs. Patterson says I have a gift for organization. She says I might want to consider library science as a career. Maya, honey, Jennifer started, her tone shifting to something that might have been conciliatory. I'm not finished, Maya said, and I felt pride surge through my chest. You think minimum wage means minimum worth. But the librarians say that good library workers are essential. That knowledge doesn't organize itself. That helping people access information is important work. She looked at Jennifer directly for the first time. You've never asked me about my job. You've never asked what I do there or why I like it. You just decided it wasn't good enough because it doesn't pay much and doesn't sound impressive at parties. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Jennifer sank back into her chair. I didn't realize. I wasn't trying to. You weren't trying to hurt her, I said. You just didn't think about her at all. You were so busy making yourself feel superior that you didn't notice you were crushing a kid who just wanted her aunt to be proud of her. My mother wiped her eyes. Jennifer, I think you need to apologize. I'm sorry, Jennifer said quickly, automatically. Not to me, my mother said. To Maya. Jennifer looked at my daughter and for the first time, I saw something like shame on my sister's face. Maya, I'm sorry. I was being awful. Your mom's right. I haven't asked about your job or your life and I should have. Maya nodded slightly but didn't say anything. I think, my father said heavily, that this Thanksgiving is over. Good, I said standing up. Maya, get your coat. As we walked to the door, my mother caught my arm. You didn't have to be so harsh. Yes, I did. For 3 years I've been gentle. And for 3 years, Maya's been learning that she doesn't matter as much as keeping peace. Family is important, my mother said. So is my daughter. And between the two she wins. Every single time. In the car Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Thanks, Mom. You never have to thank me for defending you. I know. But still. We stopped at a diner on the way home, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that had been sitting too long. Our waitress was probably in her 60s with tired eyes and efficient hands. Maya watched her work, refilling cups and clearing tables with practiced grace. She's good at her job, Maya said quietly. Yes, she is. Aunt Jennifer would probably say she should have done better with her life. Aunt Jennifer doesn't know her story. Doesn't know if she's working 2 jobs to support grandkids, or if she loves the routine, or if she owns the diner and just likes staying busy. All your aunt sees is the uniform and the minimum wage assumption. Maya nodded slowly. I don't want to be like that. You're not. You're not even a little bit like that. We ordered pie because after the day we'd had, we deserved something sweet. The waitress brought it with a smile that reached her eyes, and Maya thanked her with genuine warmth. My phone buzzed with texts from my mother, my father, even Derek. I ignored them all. The only person who mattered was sitting across from me, eating pumpkin pie and slowly unfurling back into herself. Tomorrow we'd deal with the family fallout. Tonight we were just fine on our own. Mom. Maya said as we drove home. Yeah, baby. I still want to work at the library. Good. You should do work you love, whatever that is. She smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from her all day. Sometimes burning bridges is the only way to protect what matters most. My sister could keep her superiority and her judgments. I'd keep my daughter's dignity intact, and that was worth any amount of family drama. The text from Jennifer came at midnight. We need to talk. I deleted it and went to sleep. Some conversations aren't worth having. Some people aren't worth the effort of explaining basic human decency. And some Thanksgivings the real blessing is knowing when to walk away. Maya was already asleep, her library badge still pinned to her jacket. $8 an hour, and she wore it like a medal. She'd earned it. The backyard was decorated with blue and silver balloons. My son Ethan had turned 9 that morning, and despite everything he'd been excited about this party. His grandfather had promised to come, and that still meant something to him. I should have known better. My father arrived late as usual, driving the Mercedes I'd helped him buy, though he didn't know it. My mother followed behind him, carrying a casserole dish and wearing that expression she got when she knew trouble was coming but had given up trying to prevent it. There's the birthday boy, my father announced, his voice carrying across the yard. He was good at making entrances, at commanding attention. 20 people turned to watch as he approached Ethan with his hands behind his back. Ethan's face lit up. He was at that age where he still believed in the goodness of grandparents, still thought that blood meant something automatic and unconditional. My father pulled out a wrinkled plastic shopping bag from behind his back and tossed it to Ethan. Not handed it. Tossed it the way you might throw scraps to a dog. Poor kids get poor gifts, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe when your mother gets a real job you'll get real presents. The yard went silent. My sister Maria stopped mid-conversation. My brother-in-law turned away, suddenly very interested in the grill. The neighbors who'd come with their kids suddenly found reasons to check their phones. Ethan caught the bag, his smile freezing on his face. He looked down at it, at the rumpled plastic with a discount store logo, and I watched something die in his eyes. Not the gift itself, but the casual cruelty of how it was given. The public humiliation. The message that he wasn't worth even basic kindness. My wife Sarah started toward him, but I put a hand on her arm. This one was mine. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. My finger hovered over the recurring payment screen, where every month for the past 6 years, automatic transfers had been going out like clockwork. Like the bills you can't pay without my money? I said. My voice was quiet, conversational almost, but it cut through the silence like a knife. My father's face went white. Actually white, the color draining so fast I could track it. What are you talking about? He said, but his voice had lost its swagger. I turned my phone screen toward him. I'm talking about the $1,500 I transfer to your account every month. The money that pays your mortgage, your car payment, your country club dues. My mother grabbed his arm. Stop, she whispered. Not here. Not now. Why not here? I asked. He chose here. He chose now. He chose to humiliate my son in front of everyone at his birthday party. Maria was staring at me, her expression unreadable. My brother-in-law had abandoned all pretense of grilling and was openly watching now. You don't know what you're talking about, my father said, but he couldn't quite meet my eyes. Don't I? Should I pull up the transfer history? January through December last year. $18,000. The year before that, another $18,000. The year before that. That's a loan, he interrupted. I'm paying you back. Really? Show me one payment. One single deposit you've made to my account in 6 years. Silence. You know what the funny thing is? I continued. I never minded helping. When Mom called 6 years ago and said you were in trouble, that you'd made some bad investments and were going to lose the house, I said yes immediately. No hesitation. Because you're my father and that's what family does. I could see Ethan watching now, the bag forgotten in his hands. I set up the automatic transfer that same day. $1,500 a month, every month, because that's what you needed to keep everything afloat. The house payment, the car payment, the insurance. I paid it all. We didn't ask you to, my father started. Yes, you did. Mom called me crying. You got on the phone and told me you'd lose everything. That you needed help just until you got back on your feet. And I will pay you back, he said, but the words sounded hollow. It's been 6 years, Dad. At what point were you planning to get back on your feet? Because from where I'm standing, you've been pretty comfortable. Golf every Wednesday. That trip to Florida last winter. The new furniture Mom posted on Facebook. My sister's eyes had gone wide. You've been paying their mortgage? Every month. But they told us they refinanced. That they got a better rate and everything was fine. They lied. The refinance fell through. They were 30 days from foreclosure when Mom called me. My mother's face had crumpled. You weren't supposed to tell anyone. Why not? Because it's embarrassing? Because it doesn't fit the story you've been telling everyone about your comfortable retirement and your successful investments. We have our pride, my father said stiffly. Your pride, I repeated. Your pride is worth more than my son's dignity? You can take my money every month and then stand in my backyard and call my kid poor. One of the neighbors had started quietly gathering their children. The party was disintegrating, but I was past caring. Ethan works for his money, I said. He has chores. He saves his allowance. He understands the value of $1 better than you ever have. And you know what he wanted for his birthday? Not expensive toys. Not video games. He wanted his grandfather to be proud of him. Ethan was crying now, silent tears running down his face. Sarah had moved to his side, her arm around his shoulders. I didn't mean, my father started. Yes, you did. You meant every word. You've been doing this for years. Little comments about my job, my house, my car. About how your other grandkids have more, do more, are more. About how Ethan should have better if I just worked harder. That's not. It is exactly that. And I've taken it because I thought somewhere in there you actually cared about us. That the comments came from some misguided place of wanting better for your family. I looked at my phone again, at the screen full of transfers. 6 years at $18,000 per year. $108,000. But you don't want better for us. You just want to feel superior. And the only way you can feel superior is by putting us down, because if you actually looked at the reality of your situation, you'd have to admit that your youngest son, the one you always said would never amount to anything, is the only thing keeping you from losing everything. That's enough, my mother said, her voice shaking. It's not nearly enough. It's 6 years overdue. Maria finally spoke. Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped. Because they didn't want you to know. They wanted to keep up appearances. Wanted you to think everything was fine while I paid to maintain the illusion. We would have helped, Maria repeated. I know. But then they couldn't have kept pretending. Couldn't have kept judging my choices while depending on the results of those choices to survive. My father had sat down in one of the folding chairs. He looked older, suddenly smaller. You're going to hold this over my head forever, aren't you? No, I said. I'm not going to hold it over your head at all. I'm going to stop the transfers. Tonight. No more payments. No more pretending. You want to keep your house, your car, your lifestyle? Figure it out yourself. My mother gasped. You can't do that. We'll lose everything. Then you'll lose everything. The same everything you were going to lose 6 years ago before I stepped in. At least this time you'll have warning. Please, she said, and the word was almost a sob. Don't do this. Not like this. Not like this. How should I do it? Should I wait until after you've humiliated my son a few more times? Should I keep paying while you tell him he's not good enough? Sarah finally spoke, her voice cold. You need to leave. Sarah, please, my mother started. Leave. No. This party is over. The neighbors who'd stayed began gathering their things, quiet and uncomfortable. Maria hugged Ethan quickly, whispering something to him before taking her family and leaving. Within 10 minutes, the backyard was empty except for our immediate family. My parents stood by their car. My father wouldn't look at me. My mother kept starting to speak and then stopping. I want you to understand something, I said finally. I don't regret helping you. I don't regret the money. What I regret is not setting boundaries. Not demanding basic respect in exchange for that help. We do respect you, my mother said weakly. No, you don't. You resent me. Because I'm the one who saved you, and that doesn't fit the story you want to tell. The story where I'm the screw-up and my siblings are the successful ones. That's not true. It is true. And I've let you tell that story because I thought maintaining family peace was more important than demanding acknowledgement. I was wrong. Because all it taught my son was that he should accept being treated poorly by people who claimed to love him. I turned to look at Ethan, who was sitting on the back steps with Sarah. His face was blotchy from crying, but he was watching me with something like pride. My son is not poor, I said. He's rich in every way that matters. He's kind. He's generous. He thinks about other people's feelings. He would never in a million years humiliate someone the way you humiliated him today. It was a joke, my father said, but even he didn't sound convinced. It wasn't a joke. And we both know it. They got in their car. My mother was crying openly now. My father's hands shook as he started the engine. I watched them drive away and I felt nothing but relief. Inside, I canceled the automatic transfers. $1,500 returned to my account. It felt like breathing after holding my breath for years. Sarah found me in my office an hour later. The party decorations were still up outside, hanging limply in the evening air. How are you doing? She asked. Honestly, I feel lighter. Ethan asked if Grandpa really depends on our money. What did you tell him? I told him the truth. That sometimes adults make mistakes with money and sometimes other adults help them. And that helping is good, but it doesn't give anyone the right to be cruel. I nodded slowly. I should have done this years ago. Maybe. But you did it now. That's what matters. Ethan appeared in the doorway, still holding the crumpled shopping bag. Dad. Yeah, buddy. What was in the bag? I'd forgotten to even look. I don't know. Want to check? He pulled out a package of socks. White tube socks, the kind that come in a 6-pack at discount stores. Nothing wrong with them except as a pointed message about someone's worth. I needed socks, Ethan said quietly. My toes were coming through the ones I had. My heart broke a little. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to worry. I know money's tight sometimes. Sarah and I exchanged glances. Money wasn't tight. We were comfortable, careful with spending but not struggling. But we'd been so focused on teaching Ethan financial responsibility that he'd internalized our caution as hardship. Money's not that tight, I said. We're doing fine. Better than fine. And you know what? We're going to be doing even better now. Because you're not paying Grandpa anymore? Yeah. Because I'm not paying Grandpa anymore. He thought about this. Will he be okay? I don't know. Maybe. That's for him to figure out. But what if he loses his house? Then he loses his house. And that will be sad, but it won't be my fault. It'll be the consequence of his own choices. Ethan sat down on the floor, still holding the socks. He was really mean today. He was. Are we poor? No. We're not rich, but we're not poor. We have everything we need and most of what we want. That's better than a lot of people. But Grandpa said. Grandpa was wrong. And cruel. And he was saying those things to make himself feel bigger by making you feel smaller. That's what some people do when they're not happy with themselves. I don't want to do that. You won't. You're not built that way. Later that night, after Ethan was asleep, I checked my phone. 23 missed calls from my mother. 14 text messages alternating between apologetic and angry. 3 voicemails I didn't listen to. I blocked the number. Sarah watched me do it. You're sure? I'm sure. They can figure this out themselves. Or not. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. Your siblings are going to find out. Good. Let them help for once. They're going to be angry at you. Let them. She kissed my forehead. I'm proud of you. For what? Taking 6 years to set a boundary. For setting it at all. Most people never do. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my bank confirming the cancellation of the recurring transfer. $1,500 that would stay in my account. Money for Ethan's college fund. Money for a vacation we'd been putting off. Money that was mine to spend on my actual family instead of subsidizing my parents' facade. My phone rang. It was Maria. Is it true? She asked without preamble. Which part? All of it. The money. The mortgage. Everything. Yes. Why didn't you tell us? Because Mom asked me not to. Because they were embarrassed. Because I thought I was helping. We could have split it. All 3 of us. I know. But that's not what they wanted. She was quiet for a long moment. What Dad did yesterday was unforgivable. Yes. Are you really cutting them off? Yes. Good. They need to face reality. After she hung up, I sat with the silence. No more monthly transfers. No more propping up a lie. No more accepting cruelty in exchange for my help. Just my family, my son, and the truth we'd finally spoken out loud. Ethan came downstairs wearing his new socks, the ones from the discount store. They were perfectly fine socks. They kept his feet warm. Ready for breakfast? I asked. Yeah, he said and smiled. And that smile was worth more than all the money I'd ever sent to my father's account. Some gifts are poor not because of their cost, but because of the spirit in which they're given. And some truths are worth the cost of family peace. We were going to be fine. The mansion's crystal chandeliers cast dancing lights across marble floors as I watched my 10-year-old daughter, Emma, navigate through crowds of my sister Victoria's so-called elite friends. The birthday party was exactly what I'd expected. Excessive, ostentatious, and designed to remind everyone of Victoria's supposed superiority in our family hierarchy. Emma wore her favorite blue dress, the one we'd picked together at Target last month. It wasn't designer, but she loved it. That was enough for me. She clutched a small gift bag containing the bracelet she'd saved her allowance for 3 months to buy. Aunt Victoria will love it, Mom, Emma had said in the car. It has her birthstone. I hadn't told her that Victoria would probably toss it aside without a second glance. Some lessons children need to learn themselves. Victoria held court near the grand staircase, surrounded by her usual circle of admirers. Her dress probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She'd married Marcus Chin 5 years ago. Old money, investment banking, the works. Since then she'd transformed from my occasionally annoying sister into someone I barely recognized. There's the poor relation, I heard one of Victoria's friends whisper as Emma approached with her gift. Victoria's sister. The one who works at that bank. How charitable of Victoria to include them, another responded. Emma's steps faltered, but she pressed forward. I stayed back, letting her handle this moment on her own. She was stronger than people gave her credit for. "Happy birthday, Aunt Victoria," Emma said, offering the gift bag with both hands. Victoria barely glanced down. "Oh, how sweet. Put it on that table with the others." She gestured vaguely toward a corner already overflowing with expensive packages. "I picked it out myself," Emma tried again. That's lovely, dear." Victoria turned back to her conversation without missing a beat. "As I was saying, Marcus and I are considering the Hampton property for summer." I watched my daughter's face fall. She set the gift down carefully, then retreated to where I stood near the refreshment table. "She's busy, Mom," Emma said quietly. "Lots of guests." "I know, sweetheart." The party continued around us in waves of forced elegance. Waiters in crisp white jackets circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that cost more per bite than a decent meal. Caviar on toast points, truffle-infused something or others, tiny pastries that looked like art installations. Victoria's friends laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny and name-dropped shamelessly: vacation homes in Aspen, yacht clubs in Monaco, private schools in Switzerland. My mother fluttered around trying to play the proud parent, soaking up reflected glory. She'd worn her best dress, the one she saved for special occasions, and kept steering conversations toward Victoria's accomplishments. My daughter's home, this, and my son-in-law's connections, that. It was painful to watch. I sipped my champagne, admittedly excellent, and observed the social theater. These weren't Victoria's friends in any real sense. They were her status props, people she'd collected like the art on her walls. Expensive, impressive, ultimately hollow. Emma stayed close to me, overwhelmed by the crowd. A few of Victoria's friends' children were there, but they ignored Emma completely. One girl, maybe 12, looked at Emma's dress with undisguised contempt before turning away. Emma pretended not to notice, but I saw her hand smooth down the fabric self-consciously. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. Victoria clinked her glass, demanding attention. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate with me. It means the world to have my closest friends here in our home." She paused for effect. "And of course family. Even the less fortunate members." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. My jaw tightened. "Now we've made quite a mess, haven't we?" Victoria continued, gesturing at the aftermath of gift opening: torn wrapping paper, ribbons, empty plates scattered across tables. "I'm sure the catering staff will handle most of it, but..." Her gaze landed on Emma. "Sweet Emma, darling, you can help the servants clean up. It'll be good practice for you." The room went silent. Every eye turned to my daughter. Emma's face flushed red. She looked at me, confusion and hurt written across her features. Something cold and sharp crystallized in my chest. "Practice," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "Practice for what exactly, Victoria?" "Oh, Sarah, don't be sensitive." Victoria waved a dismissive hand. "I just thought, well, given your circumstances, it's good for children to learn the value of hard work. God knows Emma won't be inheriting much." More uncomfortable laughter. My mother grabbed my arm. "Sarah, please. Don't make a scene." I gently removed her hand and took a step forward. "You're right, Victoria. Emma should absolutely understand the value of hard work. I've made sure of that." I paused, letting the room's attention focus completely on me. "But I'm curious about something. When exactly were you planning to tell everyone here that your house is being foreclosed on tomorrow?" Victoria's smirk froze. "What?" "The foreclosure," I repeated calmly. "Marcus's firm collapsed 3 months ago, didn't it? The SEC investigation, the frozen assets, the criminal charges pending. I work in loan management at First National Bank, Victoria. I see these files every day." The color drained from her face. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Should I pull up the paperwork?" "You're 4 months behind on the mortgage. The bank sent final notice 2 weeks ago. Eviction is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow." I took out my phone. "I can show everyone the file if you'd like. It's all there. The missed payments, the defaulted home equity line of credit, the second mortgage you took out to maintain this lifestyle." Marcus pushed through the crowd, his face red. "That's confidential information. You can't." "It's public record once foreclosure proceedings begin," I interrupted. "Anyone can look it up at the county clerk's office. I'm just saving your guests the trip." "Sarah, stop this right now," my mother hissed. But I wasn't finished. Do you want to know the really interesting part? I looked directly at Victoria. For the past 2 years, every single time you've called Mom crying about money troubles, she's called me. Every time you've needed help making a payment, every time Marcus's business setback threatened your lifestyle, Mom has begged me to help. Victoria's mouth opened but no sound came out. And I did help, I continued. I pulled strings at the bank, restructured your loans, bought you extensions. I spent hours on the phone with creditors, negotiating on your behalf. Do you know why the foreclosure took this long? Because I delayed it. Multiple times. The guests were pulling out their phones now, probably looking up the public records themselves. That's not true, Victoria whispered. Marcus handles our finances. He would have told me. Would he? I glanced at Marcus, whose face had gone from red to gray. Or has he been hiding the extent of your financial disaster because he's too proud to admit he lost everything in that Ponzi scheme investment? The one he convinced 6 of his clients to join, clients who are now suing him for malpractice. A woman near the front gasped. The Chin scandal. That's your husband. Sarah, you're ruining everything, my mother pleaded. No, Mom. Victoria ruined it when she decided to humiliate my daughter at her own birthday party. I turned back to my sister. You wanted Emma to help the servants clean? Here's the thing, after tomorrow you won't have servants. You won't have this house. The bank is seizing everything that's not protected by bankruptcy exemption, which Marcus conveniently forgot to file. We can fix this, Victoria said desperately. You work at the bank. You can stop it. You said you helped before. I did help before. Every single time you treated me like you're inferior while I was saving your financial life. Every time you made snide comments about my job, my house, my daughter's clothes. I helped because Mom begged me to, because I thought maybe you'd eventually realize that family means more than money. I walked over to Emma and put my hand on her shoulder. But you just asked my daughter, your niece, to clean up after your party like she's hired help in front of all these people. To teach her about hard work, because we don't have your money. I shook my head. So no, Victoria. I'm not helping this time. The foreclosure proceeds tomorrow as scheduled. Please, Victoria's voice cracked. Where will we live? I don't know. Maybe you can rent an apartment with whatever money you have left. Maybe you'll have to move in with Mom. I shrugged. Maybe you'll figure out what actual hard work looks like when you're job hunting without a trust fund to fall back on. Marcus stepped forward threateningly. You vindictive. Careful, I said coldly. I'm friends with several of the attorneys handling your clients' lawsuits. Say one more word and I'll make sure they know about every hidden asset, every offshore account, every shady transfer you've made in the last 6 months. He stopped moving. The silence in the room was deafening. Victoria's friends were already edging toward the exit, probably eager to spread the gossip to everyone they knew. My mother looked like she might faint. You should leave, Victoria said quietly, tears streaming down her face. We're going, I agreed. Come on, Emma. My daughter picked up her gift bag from the table. Victoria had never even opened it, and we walked toward the door. Sarah, my mother called out. How could you do this to your own sister? I stopped and turned around. How could I? Mom, I've been cleaning up Victoria's messes for years while she treated me like garbage. I gave her chance after chance. But she crossed a line tonight. I looked at my daughter. Nobody humiliates my child. Not even family. We left the mansion, soon to be someone else's mansion, and got into our sensible Honda Civic. Mom, Emma said as I started the car. Is Aunt Victoria really losing her house? Yes, sweetheart. Because Uncle Marcus made bad choices? Yes. Emma was quiet for a moment. Could you really have stopped it? I glanced at her. I could have delayed it again. Maybe bought them a few more months. But you're not going to. No. Because of what she said to me. Partly, I admitted. But mostly because she needed to learn that actions have consequences. That treating people badly catches up with you eventually. That family isn't about money or houses or status. It's about respect and love and being there for each other. Emma nodded slowly. Is Grandma mad at you? Probably. Will Aunt Victoria be okay? Eventually. She'll have to adjust to a different kind of life, but she'll survive. Sometimes losing everything is the only way people learn what really matters. We drove in silence for a while. Then Emma said, Mom? Yes. I'm glad we're not rich like Aunt Victoria. I smiled. Me too, baby. Me too. The next morning I got 3 phone calls. The first was from my mother screaming about family loyalty. The second was from Victoria begging for help. The third was from my boss at the bank, confirming that the foreclosure had proceeded as scheduled. I deleted my mother's voicemail without listening to it all. I sent Victoria's call to voicemail. And I told my boss that everything had been handled appropriately and by the book. Then I took Emma out for pancakes at our favorite diner. The one where we knew everyone's names and they knew ours, where the food was good and honest and no one cared what you wore or how much money you had. That evening, Emma brought her unopened gift to me. I still want to give this to Aunt Victoria someday, she said. When she's ready to apologize. I looked at my daughter with pride. That's very mature of you, sweetheart. You always say people deserve second chances, Emma reminded me. But they have to earn them first. Yes, I agreed. Yes, they do. I heard later that Victoria and Marcus moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town. Marcus got a job at a mid-level firm, the only place that would hire him with his reputation damaged. Victoria started working retail, something she'd never done in her life. My mother didn't speak to me for 2 months. When she finally called, she didn't apologize, but her tone was different. Quieter, more respectful. Victoria sent a text 6 months later. I'm sorry. For everything. I understand if you can't forgive me. I didn't respond immediately. Some wounds take time to heal. But when Emma's 11th birthday came around, I sent Victoria an invitation to a small party at our house. Nothing fancy, just family and close friends, pizza and cake. She came. She brought a thoughtful gift. Nothing expensive, just a book Emma had mentioned wanting. She was quiet throughout the party, watching as Emma laughed with her friends as I served food without any staff, as we celebrated simply and joyfully. As she was leaving, Victoria hugged me. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For teaching me what I should have learned a long time ago. She wiped her eyes. I was so awful to you. To Emma. I'm sorry. I know, I said. We'll get there. But it takes time. She nodded and left in her used Toyota, a far cry from the luxury cars she used to drive. Emma came up beside me as we watched Victoria drive away. Do you think she really changed? I think losing everything gave her a chance to find out who she really is, I said. Whether she changed or not is up to her. But at least now she has the opportunity. That's good, Emma said. Everyone deserves a chance to be better. I hugged my daughter close, grateful for her wisdom and kindness, qualities she'd learned not from wealth or status, but from understanding that true value comes from how you treat people, especially when you have nothing to gain from treating them well. The mansion sold at auction. A tech entrepreneur bought it. Victoria and I slowly rebuilt our relationship, carefully and cautiously. My mother eventually admitted I'd been right, though it took her a long time to say it out loud. Emma. She grew up understanding that money can be lost, houses can be taken away, and status means nothing in the end. What matters is character, integrity, and never forgetting where you came from or who helped you along the way. As for the bracelet Emma had bought, Victoria finally opened it a year later on her next birthday. She cried when she saw it, put it on immediately, and has worn it every day since. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the most valuable ones. And sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the truth, even when it costs them everything. The dining room at my parents' house always smelled like lavender and disappointment. Tonight was no different. I sat at the far end of the table with my 9-year-old daughter Emma beside me, her small fingers smoothing the fabric of her thrift store dress. It was clean, pressed, and fit her perfectly, but I could see the way my sister's eyes lingered on it with that particular mixture of pity and contempt she'd perfected over the years. Pass the potatoes, please, I said quietly, trying to keep the evening moving forward without incident. My sister, Victoria, pushed the bowl toward me without looking up from her phone. She was scrolling through something, probably her Instagram feed, where she posted carefully curated photos of her life. The renovated kitchen, the luxury SUV, the designer handbags. Everything calculated to broadcast success. So, how's the accounting job? My father asked, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. He was a retired surgeon, and even his dinner habits reflected decades of operating room discipline. It's good, Dad. Busy season is coming up, so I'll be working longer hours. Victoria finally looked up from her phone. Still doing taxes for small businesses? That must be fulfilling. The word fulfilling dripped with condescension. My mother shot her a warning glance, but Victoria ignored it. It pays the bills, I replied evenly. Some bills anyway, Victoria muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Emma looked up at me with worried eyes. She was sensitive, my daughter. She picked up on tension the way other kids picked up on melodies. I gave her hand a gentle squeeze under the table. How's the real estate business? I asked Victoria, trying to redirect the conversation. Booming. We just closed on another investment property last week. A beachfront condo. The rental income alone will cover the mortgage and then some. She took a sip of wine, her wedding ring catching the light. Of course you have to have capital to make money. That's just how it works. My brother James, who'd been quiet until now, chimed in. Vicky's doing really well. She and Mark are looking at upgrading to a bigger house next year. Something in that new development by the country club. That's wonderful, my mother said, her voice overly bright. She was always trying to smooth things over, to pretend our family dinners weren't minefields of comparison and judgment. Victoria set down her wine glass and looked directly at Emma. That's a pretty dress, sweetie. Where did you get it? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. The thrift store. Mom and I go together sometimes. How resourceful, Victoria said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Then she turned to me. You know, there are programs for families who need help with clothing and things. I can send you some information if you'd like. My jaw tightened. We're fine, thank you. I'm just saying, some people just can't afford to give their kids a good life. There's no shame in accepting help. He paused, letting the words sink in. Children deserve better than hand-me-downs and second-hand clothes. They deserve new things, experiences, opportunities. Emma's hand went to her dress, touching the fabric self-consciously. I watched my daughter's face fall, watched her shrink in her chair, and something inside me snapped. I looked up from my plate and met Victoria's eyes directly. Like how you can't afford your mortgage without Dad's help? The room went silent. Victoria's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. James's eyes widened. My father set down his knife with a soft clink. Excuse me. Victoria's voice was ice. Your mortgage. The one on that beautiful house you post about constantly. The one you couldn't actually afford when you bought it 3 years ago. Or the one on the investment property you just mentioned. Should I go on? Victoria's face flushed red. That's different. That's family helping family. That's Dad paying your bills while you lecture me about poverty. I kept my voice level, but every word landed like a hammer. How much does he send you every month, Victoria? 3,000? 5. Please, my mother interjected, her hands fluttering nervously. This isn't appropriate dinner conversation. You're right, Mom. It's not appropriate. Just like it's not appropriate for Victoria to humiliate a 9-year-old child because she doesn't like where we shop. I turned back to my sister. Emma's dress cost $8. It's in perfect condition and she picked it out herself because she loved the color. But please, tell me more about affording a good life while Dad subsidizes yours. James cleared his throat uncomfortably. Look, maybe we should all just... No, I interrupted. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of sitting here month after month while Victoria acts like she's self-made when everyone at this table knows the truth. Victoria stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to this. Sit down, my father said quietly. It wasn't loud, but the authority in his voice was unmistakable. Victoria sat. My father looked at me, then at Victoria, then down at his plate. Your mother and I have helped all of you at various times. That's what parents do. The difference, I said, keeping my eyes on Victoria, is that I don't pretend I'm better than everyone else while accepting that help. I don't use family money to build a facade and then judge others for being honest about their circumstances. Victoria's eyes were glistening now, whether from anger or tears I couldn't tell. You have no idea what my life is like. The pressure, the expectations. The pressure of what? Maintaining appearances? Keeping up with your country club friends? I shook my head. I work 50 hours a week. I come home and help Emma with homework. We cook dinner together, we read books from the library, and yes, sometimes we shop at thrift stores. And you know what? He's happy. He's kind. She doesn't look at other people's children and make them feel small. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Mom, it's okay. I like my dress. I softened immediately, pulling her close. I know you do, baby. And you look beautiful. My mother was crying now, dabbing at her eyes with her napkin. I just wanted a nice family dinner. So did I, Mom, I said gently. But nice doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it's not. Nice doesn't mean letting Emma think there's something wrong with who we are or how we live. James spoke up, his voice careful. Look, Vicky, maybe you could have been more tactful. Tactful. Victoria's voice rose. She just humiliated me in front of everyone. You humiliated yourself, I replied calmly. I just pointed out the hypocrisy. My father cleared his throat. The financial arrangements between your mother and me and each of you are private matters. However, he looked at Victoria pointedly. Your sister is right. There's no place for that kind of commentary at this table or anywhere else. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She wasn't used to Dad taking sides, especially not against her. I think, my father continued, we all need to remember that there are different kinds of wealth, different kinds of success. He looked at Emma and his expression softened. That's a lovely dress, Emma. Blue is definitely your color. Emma smiled tentatively. Thank you, Grandpa. The rest of the dinner passed in uncomfortable silence, punctuated only by the sound of silverware against plates. Victoria picked at her food, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. James tried and failed to start several neutral conversations. My mother looked miserable. But I felt lighter than I had in years. When dessert was served, my mother's famous apple pie, Emma asked if she could be excused to play in the backyard. I nodded, watching her slip outside with relief evident in every step. As soon as she was gone, Victoria finally spoke. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you thought it was acceptable to make a child feel inferior because of where her clothes came from, I replied. That's not what I was doing. That's exactly what you were doing. And it's not the first time. I set down my fork. Do you remember Emma's birthday party last year? You made a comment about the homemade cake. Or Christmas when you compared her toys to what you bought your kids. It's constant, Victoria. The little digs, the implications that we're not good enough. I never said. You don't have to say it directly. It's in every look, every comparison, every carefully worded observation. I leaned forward. And I'm done with it. Emma is 9 years old. She doesn't need to internalize your insecurities. Why insecurities? Victoria laughed bitterly. You're the one who's jealous. Of what? Your mortgage payments? Your dependence on Mom and Dad? I shook my head. I'm not jealous, Victoria. I'm disappointed. We used to be close. We used to be friends. But somewhere along the way you decided that having money, even money that isn't really yours, made you better than me. My mother reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. You're both my daughters. I love you both. Can't we please just move past this? I'd like to, I said honestly. But that requires Victoria to stop treating Emma and me like we're charity cases. It requires respect. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller. I didn't mean to hurt Emma. But you did. And you've been hurting me for years. I stood up, starting to collect plates. I'm not asking you to pretend we're in the same financial situation. I'm asking you to stop weaponizing the difference. My father nodded slowly. That's fair. James added, yeah, Vicky. You can be kind of judgmental sometimes. Victoria looked around the table, seeming to realize she was alone in this. I wanted to be successful. To make you all proud. We are proud, my mother said quickly. Of both of you. For different reasons. Then maybe, I suggested, we could try celebrating those differences instead of using them as ammunition. Victoria didn't respond immediately, but something in her expression shifted. The defensiveness faded slightly, replaced by something that might have been shame. I called Emma back inside for dessert. She came in hesitantly, checking the temperature of the room before sitting down. I cut her an extra-large slice of pie and watched her smile return. As we ate, the conversation slowly normalized. James talked about his job. My father mentioned a fishing trip he was planning. My mother described a new recipe she wanted to try. Victoria remained mostly quiet, but before we left she stopped me at the door. I'm sorry, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. To Emma. And to you. It wasn't effusive. It wasn't perfect. But it was something. Thank you, I replied. In the car on the drive home, Emma asked, "Are you and Aunt Victoria fighting?" "We had a disagreement," I said carefully. "But it's going to be okay. I really do like my dress." "I know you do, sweetheart. And that's all that matters." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Mom? You're really good at your job, right?" "I like to think so." "Why?" "Because Aunt Victoria made it sound like it wasn't important. But helping people with their businesses sounds important to me." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "It is important. And so are you. Don't ever let anyone make you feel otherwise." "I won't," she promised. As we pulled into our driveway, our modest, mortgage-heavy, completely paid-by-me driveway, I felt a sense of peace. The truth had hurt, yes. But sometimes hurt was necessary. Sometimes it was the only way to cut through years of accumulated resentment and false pretenses. Would things be better with Victoria? Maybe. Maybe not. But at least Emma had seen her mother stand up for her. At least she'd learned that worth wasn't measured in price tags or square footage. And sometimes that lesson alone was worth every uncomfortable moment. The cake had 7 candles, and my daughter Emma sat at the head of the table with that careful smile she wore when she was trying to be brave. It was supposed to be a small family party at my apartment. Just my parents, my sister Jessica, and a few of Emma's friends from school. Then Jessica walked in carrying a designer shopping bag and wearing sunglasses that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Sorry I'm late," she announced, pulling off the sunglasses with theatrical flair. "I was at the boutique getting Emma's gift. You know how it is when you refuse to settle for cheap things." Emma's smile flickered. She was 7 years old and already understood the subtext. "Thanks for coming," I said, pulling out a chair. "We were just about to sing." "Oh, before I forget." Jessica reached into her purse and pulled out a thick wad of cash, fanning it out like a poker hand. "I brought $2,000 for Emma. So she can get whatever she wants and, not look poor at school." The room went silent. Emma's 3 friends stared at the money with wide eyes. My mother's hand froze on her water glass. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Emma stared at the ground, her face turning red. "That's very generous," I said quietly, my phone already in my hand. I opened my email app and scrolled to the message I'd received 3 days ago. "Is this from the money you borrowed from Dad last week?" Jessica's smile faltered. "What?" "The $2,000 Dad transferred to your account on Tuesday." I held up my phone, showing the forwarded email from my father's bank. "For your emergency car repair." "Did the repair cost less than you thought, or did the emergency never exist?" My father's face went pale. "Jennifer, how did you? You copied me on the transfer confirmation, Dad. Remember? You asked me to check if it went through since you were having trouble with your banking app." Jessica's hand, still holding the cash, began to lower. "That's completely different. I am going to pay him back." "Like you paid back the $3,000 you borrowed in August?" I pulled up another email. "Or the $1,500 in June. Or the $5,000 in March." My mother set her glass down with a sharp clink. "Jessica, you said those were one-time emergencies." "They were," Jessica insisted, but her voice had lost its confidence. "I've just had some unexpected expenses." "Unexpected expenses like that bag?" I gestured to the designer shopping bag she'd set on my counter. "That's Valentino. Retail price around $4,500. Want to tell everyone how you afforded it?" Jessica's face flushed. "I don't have to explain my purchases to you." "No, but you should probably explain them to Dad, since he's currently paying your mortgage because you told him you had a medical emergency." The silence was deafening now. Emma's friends were looking at their parents uncertainly. My daughter was still staring at her lap, her small hands twisted together. "This is inappropriate," Jessica hissed. "This is Emma's birthday." "Exactly," I said, my voice calm but cold. "It's my daughter's birthday. And you walked in here, flashed cash you borrowed under false pretenses, and implied that we look poor, at her birthday party in front of her friends." I was trying to help. "No, you were trying to look generous at my expense." I stood and walked to my desk, pulling out a folder I'd prepared after seeing Dad's email. "You want to talk about looking poor? Let's talk about your actual financial situation." "Jennifer," my father said weakly. "This isn't the time." "When is the time, Dad?" When you've drained your retirement account funding her lifestyle. When mom has to go back to work at 70 to cover Jessica's debts. I opened the folder and pulled out a printed spreadsheet. I'm a financial analyst, Jessica. Did you forget that? When Dad asked me to check his transfer, I got curious. I pulled your credit report. Don't look at me like that. You're listed as a co-signer on Mom and Dad's equity line, which gives me legal access as their financial advisor. Jessica's mouth opened and closed. $47,000 in credit card debt, I read from the report. Across 6 cards, all maxed out. Minimum payments of $1,200 a month, which you're not making, based on the 3 collection notices. Your car? Leased, not owned, and you're 2 months behind. That paid-off condo you're always posting about? It has a mortgage of $380,000 and you're 90 days delinquent. My mother gasped. 90 days. Your salary as a sales coordinator is $58,000 a year, I continued. Your monthly expenses based on your social media alone exceed $7,000. The math doesn't work, Jessica. It never has. You've been funding your lifestyle through Mom and Dad for 2 years. Jessica grabbed the edge of the table. You had no right to look into my finances. You had no right to humiliate my daughter. My voice was steel now. You had no right to stand in my home, wave cash you don't have, and make my 7-year-old feel ashamed of the life I've built for her. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. You've been doing it for years. The comments about my little apartment. The jokes about my 10-year-old car. The suggestions that Emma needs better clothes, better toys, better everything, all while you're drowning in debt and lying to our parents about emergencies. I pulled out another document. This is a loan application you submitted last month, to 3 different banks. All denied. You listed Dad as a co-signer without his knowledge. That's fraud, Jessica. My father stood up slowly. You put my name on loan applications? I was going to tell you, Jessica stammered. I just needed to. You needed to maintain an image, I interrupted. An image of success that doesn't exist. And you were willing to destroy our parents' financial security to keep it up. Emma's voice, small and quiet, broke through the tension. Mommy, can we do the cake now? My heart cracked. She just wanted her birthday party back. Yes, baby. Right now. I closed the folder and looked at Jessica. Take your cash and go. You can't throw me out. I can, and I am. This is my home. Emma's birthday. And you're not welcome here anymore. Jessica looked at our parents desperately. Mom? Dad? Are you going to let her talk to me like this? My father sat back down heavily. How much do you really owe, Jessica? I told you. How much? His voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. Jessica's shoulders sagged. Including the cards, the car, the mortgage arrears, and the personal loans, about $90,000. My mother made a sound like she'd been punched. $90,000, my father repeated. And you just tried to give Emma $2,000 in cash to make your sister look bad. I wanted Emma to have nice things. Emma has nice things, I said quietly. She has a mother who works hard and doesn't lie to her family. She has a home that's paid for. Yes, paid for, Jessica. I own this apartment outright. She has a college fund with $60,000 in it. She has stability, honesty, and self-respect. Those are nice things. Jessica stared at me. You own this place? Bought it 3 years ago. I could have bought something bigger, but I wanted to save for Emma's future instead of impressing people who don't matter. I looked at my parents. I make $92,000 a year. I have no debt. I have 6 months of expenses in savings. I could have helped you, Dad, if you'd asked. Instead, you've been quietly draining your accounts to fund Jessica's Instagram lifestyle. My father's eyes were wet. I thought she was really struggling. The medical bills, the car problems. There were no medical bills. No car problems. Just a sister who couldn't admit she was living beyond her means. I turned back to Jessica. You have a choice now. You can get help, real help, financial counseling, debt consolidation, whatever it takes. Or you can keep pretending, keep borrowing, keep lying. But you're done borrowing from Mom and Dad. You can't control what they do. No, but I can show them the truth. I handed my father the folder. Everything's in there. The credit report, the collection notices, the fraudulent loan applications. They deserve to make informed decisions about their money. Jessica grabbed her purse, the cash still crumpled in her fist. You're enjoying this. I'm not, I said honestly. I'm heartbroken that it came to this. But I'm more heartbroken watching my daughter learn that her value comes from money and appearances instead of character and integrity. You taught her that today, Jessica. And I won't let it happen again. Jessica looked at Emma, who was still staring at her lap. For a moment, something like shame crossed her face. Then she turned and walked out, the designer bag swinging from her arm. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Emma's friend Mia spoke first. Is the party over? No, sweetie. I sat down next to Emma and pulled her close. The party's just starting. Let's light those candles. My mother was crying quietly. My father was staring at the folder like it might explode. Mom, Dad, I said gently. Stay. Please. Let's have cake and celebrate Emma. We can talk about the rest later. My father nodded slowly. My mother wiped her eyes and managed a smile for Emma. We sang, Happy Birthday. Emma blew out her candles with real joy this time. The shadow of Jessica's performance finally lifted. Her friends cheered and dove into the cake with the enthusiasm of 7-year-olds who'd already forgotten the awkward adult drama. After the party, after Emma's friends had been picked up and she was in her room playing with her gifts, my parents stayed behind. How long have you known? My father asked. About the debt. Since you forwarded me that transfer confirmation. I spent Tuesday evening doing research. Why didn't you tell us? Because I hoped I was wrong. And because I knew that if I said something without proof, Jessica would deny it and you'd be stuck in the middle. I poured coffee for all of us. I was going to talk to you this week. Then she showed up today with that cash and humiliated Emma, and I couldn't stay quiet anymore. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so sorry. We didn't realize. You were trying to help your daughter. There's nothing wrong with that. But Jessica needs help you can't give her. She needs professional help and she needs to face the consequences of her choices. What do we do? My father asked. You stop giving her money. Period. No more emergency loans, no more mortgage payments, no more bailouts. She has to hit bottom before she'll change. What if she loses the condo? Then she loses it. She'll find a cheaper place, downsize her life and start rebuilding. Or she won't and she'll keep spiraling. But either way you can't save her from herself. You can only watch your retirement disappear trying. My father nodded slowly, tears finally spilling over. I thought I was being a good father. You are a good father. But sometimes being a good parent means letting your kids fail. I squeezed my mother's hand. I learned that from you actually. Remember when I wanted to quit grad school? You said no. Figure it out because life doesn't let you quit when things get hard. That was different. It's exactly the same. Jessica needs to figure it out without the safety net that's enabling her lies. We sat in silence for a while, drinking coffee and processing the wreckage of the afternoon. Emma heard everything, my mother said finally. I know. We'll talk about it tonight. She's old enough to understand that money doesn't equal worth, and that appearances can be lies. I looked at the closed folder on the table. Maybe it's better she learned it now at 7 than later when the stakes are higher. My father picked up the folder. Can I keep this? It's yours. I made copies for you. He stood up, suddenly looking older than his 68 years. I'm proud of you, Jennifer. You built something real. Something honest. Thanks, Dad. After they left, I found Emma in her room, arranging her new books on her shelf. Did you have a good birthday? I asked. He thought about it. The cake part was good. The before part was weird. Yeah, it was. I'm sorry about that. Is Aunt Jessica really poor? I sat on her bed, choosing my words carefully. Aunt Jessica creates money problems for herself by spending more than she has. She pretends to be rich, but pretending costs a lot of money. Are we poor? No, baby. We have enough. We have what we need and some of what we want. That's not poor. That's smart. Emma nodded, processing. I don't want $2,000. I know. Can I have a library card instead? I laughed, the tension finally breaking. You already have one. I know, but maybe we could go this weekend? And get ice cream after. Absolutely. She went back to organizing her books, content with the simple promise of library trips and ice cream. No designer bags. No cash displays. Just time together. In the kitchen, I threw away Jessica's crumpled gift envelope she'd left on the counter in her rush to leave. The cash was gone, she'd taken it with her. I wasn't done with Jessica. Not really. There would be more conversations, more confrontations, probably more drama. But today in front of my daughter I'd drawn a line. And that line was enough for now. Emma deserved better than learning that love could be bought or that family came with a price tag. She deserved to know that her worth wasn't measured in cash or appearances, but in honesty, integrity, and the courage to stand up for yourself. Even if it meant standing up to family. Especially then.